In the morning sun where the flowers bloom, colors burst like a painter's dream come true. Roses red and violets blue, every petal whispers something new. From tiny seeds to trees so grand, every leaf and bird, it's all at hand. Hello, hello plant, welcome to the show, where every flower tells a story. Watch them grow. Hello, hello plant, in every shade and hue, for every heart and every hand, we've got something for you. Indoor greens and outdoor scenes, design your space, let your garden dreams glide. Personal touch with our garden design, free sessions to blend within your budget line. From tiny seeds to trees so grand, every leaf and bird, it's all at hand. Hello, hello plant, welcome to the show, where every flower tells a story. Watch them grow. Hello, hello plant, in every shade and hue, for every heart and every hand, we've got something for you. Now everybody, let's say hello, 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 hello. Hello, hello plant, welcome to the show, where every flower tells a story. Watch them grow. Hello, hello plant, in every shade and hue, for every heart and every hand, we've got something for you, just for you. In the morning sun where the flowers bloom, colors burst like a painter's dream come true. Roses red and violets blue, every petal whispers something new. From tiny seeds to trees so grand, every leaf and bird, it's all at hand. Hello, hello plant, welcome to the show, where every flower tells a story. Watch them grow. Hello, hello plant, in every shade and hue, for every heart and every hand, we've got something for you. Indoor greens and outdoor scenes, design your space, let your garden dreams glide.
Hi everyone, it is a miserable, very bleak Melbourne morning. Getting into the afternoon now, it's raining quite heavily if you can hear that in the background, and you would not be thinking at all that spring blossoms are happening. I mean, it's middle of July pretty much, but would you believe it, Chris went down the other day to Williamstown and found beautiful, beautiful magnolias in blossom. And that's why today we've decided to talk all about magnolias, but specifically about magnolias that lose all their leaves come winter time, and then in spring they get this beautiful show of flowers that's just completely on display, and without the foliage kind of also competing for attention. So I'm pretty excited to hear about this. It's getting a little bit bleak right now in winter, isn't it, Chris?
Yeah, that's right. But I always feel that the worst of winter's over once you start to see magnolias coming into bloom. And I was doing a little horticultural project down in Williamstown, and I saw, leaning over the front fence of one house, I saw a branch with one of the first ones I'm going to talk about, Leonard Messel, just breaking into bloom. And I know if I went over and had a smell, I would have had the most beautiful fragrance. And then I saw a Solangiana in another street coming into flower. So the magnolia season is happening down by the beach because a little bit warmer there, but it'll only be a couple of weeks, and it'll be happening out in Box Hill and Ringwood and all over the place.
So exciting. I can't wait to hear all about these magnolias. We got, let's see, about 7 magnolias to chat about today, but if you do find you have any questions along the way regarding magnolias, or if it's just anything about gardening, chuck them in the comments and we will answer them live. So yeah, let's get started. Let's talk about that Leonard Messel magnolia.
Right, actually, well, first of all, what I'm not going to be discussing anything like little gems or any of your evergreen magnolias, the fairy magnolias, your port wine magnolias or anything like that. What I'm just interested at the moment in the type of magnolia that loses its leaves in autumn, is naked through the winter, and then has a spectacular display of beautiful flowers with no leaves in springtime, in late winter or early spring or even through to mid-spring. And what I've done is that there's probably on the market, hard to get, but there's probably 50 or 60 different varieties of these magnolias. So what I've done is I'm not going to go into all the different varieties because then I'll just be baffling you with names and things like that. What I'm doing is I'm going to tell you about the most important, in my opinion, in each segment and how you could use that particular one. So basically the first one I want to talk about is Leonard Messel. Now Leonard Messel is in the star magnolia family, and there's a few different star magnolias on the market. There used to be lots and lots of them. They used to be very popular, but they're a little bit rare and unusual, and Leonard Messel is probably the pick of them. What it is that it's a cold, like they're just starting to flower now, it's a cold winter's day, and they have that little blush, it's white with a little blush of pink, and the flowers are kind of spidery or star-like. The flowers are kind of like this. They're kind of curly, twisty kind of flowers, and a whole tree of it looks absolutely amazing. And one of the good things about your Leonard Messel is it's much smaller than most of the other magnolias. It's more of a big bush than a small or medium-sized tree. So it's a big bush, it's fragrant, it's very, very early, and it's kind of unusual. It's kind of star-like and very bushy. So really an interesting show. And Leonard Messel is probably the pick of all of those, what they call star magnolias. So it's one particular family group. It's kind of a bush magnolia, and it's a hint of pink, and probably first off the block to bloom. It was the first one I've seen this year. So Leonard Messel magnolia.
Amazing. Now, and you can just see a picture of that in the background there, looking very, very gorgeous in bloom. Don't worry if you don't catch any of the exact names. It can be a little bit tricky to spell. So we are going to post an article about this probably next week around about that will have all the names. So don't worry if you can't quite catch the spelling or name.
Yes, next Wednesday, by next Wednesday we're putting up a magnolia page with an in-depth look of all the different ones on the market, so you can select exactly the right magnolia. But we're just going to go through the main ones today. The next one I want to talk about is black tulip. Now, what I want to talk about that is that you'll find your black tulip a little bit expensive, a little bit hard to get. And the reason for that is it's one of the few magnolias that's produced by grafting. Now, what happened about 20 odd years ago, somebody developed a gene of magnolia that was sort of purpley reddy colour, and a whole series of different ones came out, and the most popular was called Vulcan. And basically it was kind of sad in a way what happened, because all the nurserymen switched over to growing these red and purple magnolias, and it got to where a couple of years ago, and even today, it's quite hard to buy what I'd call the classic one, which is, I'm going to come to that in a minute, which is your Solangiana, which is the one that's beautiful and pink and has like a candle-like bloom that then opens up like a tulip as it comes out. And that's the one that people really, really love, and it's the all-time classic that people look forward to every year. And so nurserymen went mad doing all these different reds and purples and mauves and all these different coloured ones. And what's happened is that the market's crystallised, and the most popular one now is the one that you see on the screen now, and it's called black tulip. Now, black tulip, I think it's exquisite. I think the number one magnolia I'd put in my garden would be a rustica rubra, which I'll talk about a bit later. And the number two would be this black tulip. It's exquisite. And what I like about it, it's not a big tree. It's more of a medium to small tree. The flowers are good size, but they're not extraordinarily big. It's a very hardy one. It doesn't damage easily in your winter or nasty spring weather. You get a good long show out of it, and the colour is absolutely exquisite. It's a beautiful, deep purple. So really, really lovely tree.
And hey, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. We got black tulip on a pretty good sale right now, don't we? In our winter clearance.
Yes, that's right. We do have black tulip on sale. Normally, it's pretty expensive and pretty hard to get. Very, very exquisite, and probably my second favourite magnolia of the whole lot. So and the reason why it is expensive and it is hard to get is that nurserymen have to produce it by grafting.
Interesting. So if you are liking what you're seeing, you should definitely get your hands on one right now. It's the best time you're going to get it. It's the cheapest, and you're the most guaranteed to get it before it sells out before spring.
Yes, that's right. But I don't reckon. Normally, by the middle or end of the magnolia season, black tulips become virtually unavailable in Melbourne because they're so scarce and so sought after by so many people.
Fair enough. I mean, look how beautiful that is. All right, let's move on to the next one.
Okay, now I want to talk about your Solangiana magnolia, and I'll talk about Solangianas in general. And this is where we might look at our Solangiana video. So what? This is now, when most people think of a spring magnolia, Melbourne has been full of Solangiana magnolias for probably 100 years, and you'll find beautiful old ones in old gardens. They've been a bit hard to get the last couple of years, but we've got quite a few of them these days. Now, what's interesting, Solangiana, there's different varieties of Solangiana, but Solangiana comes out fairly early in the season, or some of the Solangianas come out quite early in the season. There's different sorts, and you would describe them as a small to large growing tree. A large Solangiana can get quite a large tree, and they're incredibly spectacular. The inside of the flower is white. They come out as at a certain stage, your whole tree will be covered in these amazing mauvey pink candles, and then they open out like little tulips. And as you can see in that video there, and I think that's the all-time classic magnolia. And generally they're not too expensive because they're produced by cutting and not by grafting. And most of them are not patented varieties. They're all ones that nurserymen. The patented magnolias always cost more than the normal magnolias. So they're ones that people have grown and bred and named over many, many years, and so they're not too expensive. They're fairly easy to grow. What they like is they like a warm, sunny space, a bit of room to spread out. And they love nice loose soil and fairly rich conditions. They love a bit of chicken manure, they really love a bit of cow manure, so a bit of natural manure, and a nice hot sunny spot, and you'll find they grow quite quickly, and with plenty of water in the summer and a bit of manure, they grow very, very quickly. They're very easy to grow, and really anybody could have a Solangiana magnolia. They're not too expensive, and they put on a mighty show, arguably, the best magnolia on the market. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to I think on the list that comes out on Wednesday, there's going to be nearly 20 varieties of Solangiana, and each one has various reasons why you'd buy it. But what I did is I picked out 3 really interesting and different Solangianas to consider today. And the first one is Burgundy Glow. Now, Burgundy Glow has a dark burgundy stripe on the outside of it, and it has a sort of and that gives it a kind of a sort of a glowy look, but it's sort of fairly light pink over the rest of it, so really quite a sort of a burgundy stripe. But the best thing about it, and you can see looking at that picture there, it's one of the most compact of the Solangianas. So if you want to have that amazing Solangiana show, but you haven't got an enormous space, the one to buy is a Burgundy Glow.
Do these trees need to be pruned?
Yeah, well, they can be pruned, and your magnolias love a good prune.
Okay,
So-
when would you say we should be pruning them?
As soon as they finish flowering.
Okay.
Because then you've got time for new buds and that to form for next year.
Perfect.
So prune them, and you can prune your magnolias back very, very hard.
Yep, awesome. Hope that helps, Karen.
Yeah. So Burgundy Glow, if you're looking for a Solangiana and you want it to be a little bit on the smaller size, you go Burgundy Glow. Now, probably my favourite Solangiana aesthetically, just to look into one of the flowers, and as an individual flower, to look into that individual flower, one of my favourites would be Rustica rubra. Now, Rustica rubra, enormous flower, absolutely massive Solangiana flower, and you can see a sort of a beautiful soft pink on the outside, and when you look inside, just the softest sort of pinky white on the inside, an absolutely enormous flower, lovely little hint of fragrance in it, and it's really a medium-sized tree, very, very nice. And I think if you wanted something really exquisite and a slightly different colour, and then with Rustica rubra, I would call that a mid-season. So if you're there's early Solangianas, and then there's Rustica rubra, which will tend to be mid-season, and then I'm going to tell you about Star Wars. And Star Wars is
Not the movie.
yeah, Star Wars is a Solangiana with a real difference. There's your Star Wars there. It has a kind of a longish flower, and it's the last of the Solangianas to flower. And so you could buy yourself 3 Solangianas and have beautiful pink magnolia flowers for probably 10 or 12 weeks of flowers by buying. And now Star Wars is very, very interesting. Is that Star Wars? That's it there. That sort of spidery long petal there, quite distinctive. But Star Wars does something that really no other magnolia does. And what it does is that it repeat flowers in the summer. So what you'll have, and I don't know if we can find a photo of it on the web, but you'll have in summer you'll have green leaves over your magnolia, and then you'll just have these. The summer flowering is nowhere near as heavy as the spring flowering, so you'll just have, and I think that's where they got the name Star Wars, you'll just have these beautiful starry flowers here and there in amongst the green foliage, right in the heat of summer. So very interesting feature. So Star Wars for late season flowering and for a little bit of late summer flowering.
We have a question here from Susan asking, can the classic one grow in any zone like the Wimmera, zone 4, semi-arid but very cold winter nights?
Yes, it would be fine there. What I'd be doing is I'd be digging a nice big hole, mixing some really good soil in there. They love a bit of cow manure. I reckon you can find a bit of that out there. And plenty of water in the heat of summer, and that would absolutely boom for you.
Beautiful. Also, don't worry, I'm not ignoring the other questions. I'm just going to be answering the magnolia ones immediately, and then at the end I'll circle back and answer the other gardening questions. So don't worry, if you've asked a question and it hasn't been answered yet, just stick around to the end and we will address them then. All right, let's keep going.
Now, one of the rising stars of the magnolia world is butterfly. So let's have a look at butterfly. Now look at that. It's the softest, creamiest yellow.
That's beautiful.
And now, what's great about butterfly, it's a very compact magnolia. So if you have only got a small garden or a small spot for a magnolia, you can house this exquisite butterfly. And I think that's Deniodata coming up there now. We'll go back to butterfly.
Oh, that's butterfly as well.
Is that butterfly? Yeah. Right, okay, yeah. So if you've only got a small spot in the garden, butterfly, beautiful sort of buttery, creamy kind of yellow, lovely tree, and compact, and a really different colour to all the rest. And then when I was a boy, I lived at Mount Dandenong, and we had an enormous magnolia in the front yard. It must have been 80 or 90 years old, and it was probably about 9 metres tall and about 6 or 7 metres wide, And in very early September it would flower, and it would start off and it must have had 15 or 20,000 white blooms over it that were just like white candles. And then as it opened, our whole front garden was filled with the most exquisite fragrance. And we lived sort of 100 metres off the main road, but people from the main road could see through the forest. They could see this white tree, and people would arrive from everywhere and come and photograph it and look at it and things like that. And to this day, it was the biggest magnolia I've ever seen. And that magnolia was a Magnolia denudata. And denudata has the most amazing fragrance. It's the purest white, absolutely pure white, very, very dense flower, and it grows slowly and eventually into a quite a large tree. There's another white one. The other white one that I know is called Lenii alba. Now, Lenii alba doesn't have the fragrance and doesn't perhaps have quite the density of flowers that you have with denudata. Now, what's interesting about denudata is it hasn't been, that's how ours would start off like that, with just beautiful white candles like that and then start to open up. But the thing about denudata is that denudata hasn't been bred. It's a natural, that's a natural from the wild magnolia. It comes from Japan, and if you were to see it growing in the wild, it actually has flowers and fragrance just as you see there. And it really is one of the best magnolias that you can have. It flowers, this was up in the hills in early September, so in Melbourne it would flower in late August through to early September. So amazing fragrance, pure white, and this would suit people who love magnolias but they're having that green and white kind of garden. And it's a tree with a tremendous show, and even though our one was enormous, it is again a tree that you could prune, and you could keep that as a small or medium-sized tree and really enjoy those fragrant flowers. So that's Magnolia denudata, and that gives you, without having, like I could show you 50 different magnolias in back of you, that gives you a kind of a look at the different magnolias that are on the market. Now, back to how would you grow a magnolia, and what have you got to think about? First of all, magnolias are produced by 3 different methods. You can buy seedling magnolias, which tend to be quite cheap, and seedling magnolias would grow like crazy. They have enormous vigour because they have the vigour of not being sexually mature. They're not flowering, they're not seeding, they're not doing anything, they're just growing. And so if you wanted to have a really big Magnolia solangiana, you could buy a seedling one very, very cheaply, and it'll grow quite big, and it'll grow for 4 or 5 years, and then it'll flower, and you'll have masses of flowers on it. But it's so, and that's a very cheap magnolia. So, and then the next thing is your cutting growing magnolias. Now, your cutting growing magnolias are not as expensive as your grafted magnolias, but they'll flower within 1 to 3 years of purchase, and they'll flower really, really well from quite a young age and at quite a small size. And and then last of all, you've got your grafted magnolias, and generally it's the rarer magnolias. It's your reds, it's your purples. There's one called Campbelli, which is an amazing pink one. So your grafted magnolias tend to be expensive, tend to be a little bit harder to get, and tend to have some of the more interesting colours, but all of them are the same. They all want a hot sunny spot, that you need at least half a day's sun to get the best out of them. So they want a nice hot sunny spot. They want nice loose soil. So if you're in heavy clay or something like that, dig it over, mound it up, mix a lot of potting mix through it, give them a good start. And Osmocote is fine as a fertiliser. If you're acidic, a little bit of dolomite lime, but cow manure or a bit of cow manure or chicken manure really mixed in really gets them going, and even as a top dress really, really gets them going. So, and then apart from that, there's very few problems that you'll growing properly in a hot sunny spot. Your magnolia is very much a trouble-free plant, and because they flower in those really cool periods, like a lot of things that flower in the warm part of spring, the flowers rot and fall off very quickly. Your magnolias the flowers tend to last quite well, and you get quite a long show with your magnolias. And And actually, there's one more magnolia. Actually, there's one magnolia that I forgot to put in here. Could you Google, Emlyn, and have a look at a nigra, a Liliflora nigra? I think to cover them properly, I just remembered there's one more that I should really talk about a little bit. And this is probably the last magnolia of the, apart from your Star Wars, which will flower in the summer, your Liliflora nigra will be your last flowering magnolia. And they flower in mid to late October. And your Liliflora nigra, fairly small flower, very candle-like flower, and super duper dark purple. And the other thing about a Liliflora nigra, it would be one of the smallest of your flowering magnolias. I've seen them really quite old. I had one in a garden that I had one time, and it was really quite old, and it was probably only just 2 meters tall. So really very, very compact, amazing dark purple, sort of narrow, tall, candle-like flowers. A bit of sort of, like you can see there, a bit of sort of silvery on the inside, but very, very compact, and probably the last, apart from your summer flowering Star Wars, but the last of your deciduous magnolias to flower. And really worth a part in any garden, and very good for anybody that wants a really rich colour and wants a nice compact magnolia.
Wow, that looks really stunning there. So if you guys can see the pictures just there of that stunning magnolia.
So that's really the rundown of that gives you a look across at the main points of all the different deciduous mass flowering magnolias.
How exciting. And especially thinking about how cold it is right now, it's quite nice knowing that soon those beautiful blossoms are going to be on display.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And actually, probably one other thing is that some of your magnolias, like your Solangiana, and if you choose the right Solangiana, or your Denudata, they're big enough to make a shade tree. So they're the sort of tree that you could put in the middle of a large lawn, let them grow to full size, and sit under them in summer, or grow other plants. Or so they're large enough to actually be a large feature tree that could be utilised as a shade tree, or as you know, play a role in the garden. They're not just a big bush. Yeah.
Exactly. What are some of your favourite plants to pair with magnolias?
So our Denudata magnolia, Mum planted the Japanese anemone underneath, and we just had an ocean of Japanese anemone underneath our Denudata magnolia, and in autumn it would be just a sea of beautiful white flowers, and they really enjoyed the shade. So if you've got a nice big magnolia, things like heliobores give you winter flowers. Your Japanese anemone seem to just go beautifully with the magnolia, and that'll give you autumn flowers. And then your plectranthus. There's different plectranthus you could grow underneath, and they're all things that would enjoy the shade of a magnolia and kind of have that kind of the look that goes with the magnolia. So plectranthus, anemone, and heliobores would all be things that would grow beautifully under a nice big shady magnolia.
Great. Well, we'll answer some of the questions that were asked before we wrap up. Our first question is from Mujahid, sorry if I said your name wrong, asking, can I plant mid-yam berries I got off you in the shade?
Yes, they grow in the bush, and they grow under other larger trees. And so don't go deep shade, but sort of partial or speckly shade would be perfect.
Great. All right. Next question is from Errol, asking, can you trim the conifers in winter?
I reckon it would be better to do them at the end of winter, because right now they're photosynthesizing and sucking up the energy from the sun, and so if you trim them late in the season, they'll have more energy in them for spring movement.
All right, amazing. And next question is from Ken. How do you have hydrangeas in winter? Do they need to have a greenhouse?
You'd have to get them to go dormant, and then you'd have to put them into a greenhouse and heat them up and get them going. So a person with a, I'd say you would need heat. You'd need heat in a greenhouse to have winter hydrangea flowers, and they would do it for you.
Do you know how to get them to go dormant, the hydrangeas?
They're making them cold, you know.
Freeze them and then heat them up again.
Yeah, that's right. So get them out in as exposed a spot as possible, and then as soon as the leaves look yellow, strip them all off. Let them be dormant for a week or so, then put them in a hothouse and warm them right up.
Sounds great. Good luck with that, Ken. Let us know how you go. Awesome. So we're going to wrap up if there aren't any other questions. Thank you everyone for coming to our live. We actually do a weekly live Q&A that's purely dedicated to just answering your questions every single Monday, 12 p.m. On Instagram, YouTube, X. We're working on Facebook. We're currently having some problems with that. So whatever platform you are on right now, we're going to be on again next week. We also do lives on topics like this. For example, we do about like autumn colours, winter flowering, magnolias like today, where we really focus in on something specific in gardening to teach you and broaden your knowledge. So thank you everyone for coming along. And if there are any questions you have, come along to our Monday Live and join us there where we can all learn more about gardening. So have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. Stay out of the rain, stay warm, and let's get excited for spring.
Yeah, and enjoy the spring magnolia flowers.
In winter.
Yeah.
All right, see you everyone.
Bye.